Welcome to Heart of a Soldier, where duty and conscience collide at 30,000 feet. Today's story follows Major Diana Foster, a cargo pilot whose routine mission becomes a journey into the heart of a conspiracy that threatens everything she's sworn to protect. Sometimes the most dangerous cargo isn't what you're carrying, it's what you discover about those giving you orders. This is a story about the moment when following orders becomes the greatest betrayal of all. When a soldier must choose between career and conscience, between silence and salvation. Major Diana Foster had built her career on two unshakable principles: never ask questions about the cargo, and always complete the mission. In 8 years of flying classified transport missions for the Air Force's Special Operations Command, these rules had served her well, earning her commendations, promotions, and the trust of commanders who needed someone reliable for their most sensitive operations. At 34, Diana was exactly what the military wanted in a pilot: technically proficient, mentally tough, and discreet to a fault. Her personnel file was immaculate. No disciplinary actions, no security violations, no political affiliations that might compromise her clearance. She was the kind of officer who could carry nuclear warheads, classified documents, or diplomatic pouches without losing a moment's sleep wondering about their contents. That October morning at Dover Air Force Base started like hundreds of others. Diana arrived at the Flight Operations Building at 0500 hours, her uniform pressed to perfection. Her flight bag, containing the same items she'd carried on every mission for the past 3 years: coffee, granola bars, mission documents, and a worn paperback novel she never seemed to find time to finish. Morning, Major, greeted Master Sergeant Rick Torres, the loadmaster who'd worked with her on dozens of flights. Looks like we've got an interesting one today. Diana raised an eyebrow. In their line of work, interesting was rarely a good thing. Define interesting, Sergeant. Torres handed her the mission folder, his expression unreadable. Classified payload, classified destination, and a flight path that avoids every major population center on the East Coast. Plus, we're carrying passengers who aren't on any manifest I've seen. Diana opened the folder and felt a familiar chill. The orders were signed by General Marcus Webb, a name she'd never encountered in 8 years of flying special operations missions. The destination was listed simply as Facility 7 with GPS coordinates that, when she checked them on her chart, appeared to be in the middle of nowhere in the Nevada desert. Ever heard of General Webb? She asked Torres. The veteran loadmaster shook his head. 22 years in the Air Force, and I've never come across him, which is strange, because I thought I knew every general who authorized special cargo missions. The cargo manifest was equally mysterious. 24 sealed containers, each weighing exactly 500 pounds, each bearing biohazard symbols and warning labels in English, Russian, Chinese, and Arabic. The contents were listed as medical supplies, Priority Alpha, but Diana had carried real medical supplies before, and they'd never required this level of security. Passengers? Diana asked. 2 civilians, Dr. Richard Kane and a man identified only as Davis, both carrying diplomatic pouches sealed to their wrists. Diana felt her professional instincts kicking in. Something about this mission felt wrong, but her orders were clear and properly authorized. She'd built her career on not asking questions, and she wasn't about to start now. All right, Sergeant. Let's get the bird ready. The C-130J Hercules was Diana's office, and she knew every rivet, every system, every quirk of the aircraft. As she conducted her pre-flight inspection, she noticed additional modifications, extra communications equipment, environmental isolation systems for the cargo bay, and what looked like some kind of air filtration system that definitely wasn't standard. Her co-pilot, Captain Steve Morrison, arrived looking as puzzled as she felt. Morrison was a good officer, competent and reliable, but he wore his emotions on his sleeve in a way that Diana had learned to avoid. Major, have you read the full mission brief? The restricted flight path, the biohazard protocols. What exactly are we carrying? Captain, we're carrying what the manifest says we're carrying: medical supplies for a classified facility. Our job is to deliver them safely and on time. But even as she said, Diana felt doubt gnawing at her confidence. In 8 years of special operations flying, she'd developed instincts about missions. and every instinct was telling her that today's flight was different. The passengers boarded 30 minutes before takeoff, and Diana immediately understood why they weren't on any official manifest. Dr. Richard Kane was a man in his 60s with the pale complexion of someone who spent most of his time in laboratories rather than sunlight. His companion, introduced only as Davis, appeared to be in his 30s, with nervous eyes that constantly scanned their surroundings, as if expecting trouble. Both men carried briefcases locked to their wrists with security cables that looked military-grade. More concerning were the radiation detection badges clipped to their clothing, and the fact that they immediately retreated to the forward section of the cargo bay, as far as possible from the sealed containers. Dr. Kane, Diana addressed the older man as she completed her final pre-flight checks. My orders didn't mention passengers. I need to contact base operations to update the manifest. Kane's response was sharp and immediate. Major Foster, your orders come from the highest levels of national security. Any deviation from this mission profile, any unauthorized communications, would be considered a severe breach of classified protocols. There was something in his tone that went beyond mere authority, an undercurrent of threat that made Diana's skin crawl. But her orders were clear, and challenging a civilian with apparent high-level authorization wasn't something a career Air Force officer did lightly. Understood, sir. We'll be airborne in 15 minutes. As the C-130 taxied toward the runway, Diana caught fragments of conversation between Kane and Davis through her headset. The men were speaking in low voices, but certain phrases cut through the engine noise with chilling clarity. ... Test subjects showed complete cellular breakdown within 72 hours. ... If exposure occurs before we reach the containment facility. ... Population density studies indicate optimal distribution patterns. ... Diana felt her blood run cold. Test subjects. Population density. These weren't terms associated with medical supplies or humanitarian aid. Her hands tightened on the controls as she realized she might be carrying something far more dangerous than she'd been led to believe. Dover Control. Air Force Special 2847. Ready for departure. Special 2847. You are cleared for takeoff. Maintain assigned altitude and routing. Good luck. The C-130 lifted off into the clear October sky, but Diana's mind was racing with implications she didn't want to consider. Behind her, she could hear Kane and Davis continuing their whispered conversation, punctuated by references to containment protocols and exposure risks. 4 hours into the flight, as they crossed into Colorado airspace, the number 2 engine began showing temperature anomalies. Diana had accumulated over 4,000 hours in C-130 aircraft, and she knew the difference between a minor issue and a potential emergency. Steve, I'm seeing elevated temps on number 2. Let's run through the troubleshooting checklist. Captain Morrison began working through the emergency procedures, but the engine temperatures continued climbing toward the red line. Standard operating procedure was clear. Land at the nearest suitable airfield for maintenance inspection. Major Foster. Dr. Kane's voice crackled through the intercom from the cargo bay. What is your status? We're experiencing mechanical difficulties with one engine. I'm diverting to Peterson Air Force Base for emergency maintenance. Negative. Kane's response was immediate and sharp with panic. The cargo cannot be exposed to outside inspection. Continue to destination on 3 engines. Diana felt every instinct as a pilot and officer rebelling against the order. Dr. Kane, I'm the pilot in command of this aircraft. Flight safety takes precedence over cargo considerations. Major, you don't understand the implications. The materials we're carrying are classified at the highest levels. Exposure to unauthorized personnel could compromise national security operations that have been years in development. Through her headset, Diana heard Kane making a frantic phone call to someone he addressed only as Control. The Phoenix samples are stable for now, but we need them in proper containment within 6 hours, or the entire operation is compromised. No, she doesn't know what she's carrying. What do you mean, eliminate the crew? Diana's heart stopped. Eliminate the crew. She caught Morrison's eye and saw her own terror reflected there. Whatever they were carrying, there were people willing to kill to protect its secret. Peterson Air Force Base. This is Air Force Special 2847 declaring an emergency. Request immediate landing clearance. Special 2847. You are cleared to land runway 35. Emergency vehicles standing by. As they descended toward Peterson, Diana's mind raced through options. Land and face whatever consequences came with exposing the cargo, or continue the flight and potentially become victims of whatever elimination Kane had discussed. The choice became clear when she overheard Davis speaking urgently into his radio. Target is deviating from flight plan. Authorization requested for containment protocols upon landing. They weren't just cargo thieves or terrorists. They were part of something bigger. Something that viewed Diana and her crew as expendable assets in a larger operation. The emergency landing at Peterson Air Force Base saved Diana's life in ways she wouldn't understand for several more hours. As maintenance crews swarmed over the C-130, standard safety protocols required a routine inspection of the cargo bay, an inspection that Dr. Kane fought with every bureaucratic weapon at his disposal. This cargo is classified above your clearance level, Kane argued with the base commander, Colonel Patricia Ayes. I'm ordering you to refuel this aircraft and clear us for immediate departure. But Colonel Hayes was a by-the-book officer with 25 years of experience. Doctor, I don't care if you're carrying the crown jewels. No aircraft leaves this base with mechanical discrepancies, and my maintenance crews inspect every aircraft that lands here. While Kane argued with base officials, Captain Morrison made a discovery that changed everything. During the rough landing, one of the mysterious passengers' briefcases had burst open, spilling documents across the cargo bay floor. Diana. Morrison's voice was barely a whisper as he showed her the papers. Look at this. The documents revealed Operation Phoenix in horrifying detail. The medical supplies weren't supplies at all. They were biological weapons, genetically engineered viruses designed to target specific ethnic populations, rendering entire groups vulnerable to diseases that would appear natural but spread with the efficiency of the most aggressive pandemics in human history. But the worst revelation was yet to come. The test sites listed in the documents weren't enemy territories. They were villages in Africa and Central America, where American medical missions had been providing aid for years. Thousands of people had been unknowingly used as test subjects, their deaths attributed to natural disease outbreaks, while researchers refined their biological weapons. Steve, look at Phase 3. Diana pointed to the final section of the operational plan. Phase 3 called for domestic deployment, testing delivery systems in major American cities, with minority communities specifically selected as acceptable test populations to refine distribution methods before any potential military use. Morrison's face went white. They're planning to test biological weapons on American citizens. Diana felt sick. The cargo bay around her suddenly felt contaminated, as if the very air might be poisonous. But her horror was interrupted by the sound of raised voices from outside the aircraft. Dr. Kane was screaming at Colonel Hayes, demanding immediate takeoff clearance and threatening court-martials for anyone who interfered with his mission. Davis was making increasingly frantic phone calls, using terms like containment failure and security breach. Major Foster. Kane climbed back into the aircraft, his face flushed with rage. You are under direct orders to continue this mission. Any further interference will be considered treason against the United States. Diana looked at the documents scattered across the floor, at the containers holding weapons designed to kill thousands of innocent people, at the man who was demanding she help deliver tools of genocide to their destination. For 8 years, she'd followed orders without question. But there were some orders that no moral person could follow. Standing in the cargo bay of her C-130, surrounded by containers of biological weapons, Major Diana Foster made the most important decision of her life. Captain Morrison, help me open these containers. Morrison stared at her in shock. Ma'am, that's direct disobedience of orders. Steve, look at these documents. Look at what they did to those villages. Look at what they're planning to do to American citizens. Diana's voice was gaining strength. Following these orders isn't patriotism, it's complicity in mass murder. Dr. Kane was screaming now. Major Foster, you are committing treason. Doctor, the only treason here is what you and your bosses have been doing to innocent people for years. Diana began working on the container seals with maintenance tools. Morrison hesitated, then picked up a crowbar and began working on another container. You're right, Major. Some things are more important than careers. The containers opened with hissing sounds, revealing vials filled with engineered biological weapons. Kane screamed for security forces, but it was too late. The weapons were exposed to air and sunlight, neutralizing them within hours. Morrison found more documents, revealing the full scope. Decades of illegal testing on American citizens and foreign populations. Diana's mission was just one part of a massive program treating humans as expendable test subjects. Colonel Hayes arrived with base security just as they finished. The Peterson base commander took one look at the scene and made her decision. Secure this aircraft. Nobody leaves until I understand what's happening here. Within hours, Diana contacted investigative journalist Rebecca Martinez. The story broke across every major news network. Biological weapons targeting ethnic populations, American citizens used as test subjects, programs violating international law. The court-martial was swift. Major Diana Foster was found guilty and sentenced to 15 years in military prison. But her actions triggered the largest investigation of military conduct in decades. Congressional hearings exposed Operation Phoenix and dozens of similar programs. General Webb and 73 other officers faced prosecution. The entire biological weapons program was terminated. Captain Morrison received 5 years for his support of Diana's decision. His testimony before Congress helped convict many of the program's architects. At Fort Leavenworth, Diana received thousands of letters from around the world, families thanking her for exposing the truth. Communities that had been targeted by these weapons, people whose lives had been saved by her courage. You saved my grandfather's village, wrote one student. Because of your courage, we got justice and prevented more deaths. After serving 3 years, Morrison visited Diana in prison. Any regrets? He asked. No regrets, Steve. How could I regret saving lives? Diana was released after 4 years when a federal appeals court overturned her conviction, ruling her actions constituted protected whistleblowing. She received a presidential pardon and formal apology. Dr. Sarah Kim from the CDC contacted her to explain how exposing Operation Phoenix had led to discovering 12 other biological weapons programs. Their termination prevented what models suggested would have been multiple pandemic-level outbreaks. Your decision prevented an estimated 2.3 million deaths worldwide, Kim wrote. Diana became a civilian flight instructor in Montana, teaching young pilots while carrying the knowledge that her choice had changed history. She'd lost her military career, but gained something more valuable: the certainty that when everything was on the line, she had chosen conscience over convenience, truth over career. The biological weapons she'd destroyed would never claim their intended victims. Somewhere in the world, children were alive because a cargo pilot had decided some orders are too immoral to follow. In the cockpit of conscience, Major Diana Foster flew her most important mission, not through enemy airspace, but through the moral turbulence that defines true heroism. Her sacrifice reminds us that sometimes the greatest act of loyalty to your country is disobedience to those who would betray its values. The Phoenix operation died in flames, so that millions of innocent lives could continue. And in that destruction, Diana Foster found the true meaning of service. Sometimes the most dangerous mission isn't the one that puts your life at risk. It's the one that puts your soul on the line. This has been Heart of a Soldier. Stand for truth, even when it costs everything, especially when it costs everything. The sky is vast enough for both duty and conscience, and heroes are those who refuse to let others define the limits of either.